And here we are. We are live on this Thursday, the 26th of March. Joe Rao and Joe Cioffi on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. Welcome to all. Smile,
Hey,
Mr. Rao.
uh-oh. No,
Let me.
I'm trying to see. I'm on the YouTube right now because nobody is getting notifications because they're
Correct.
all robotic. And I usually Google and go to YouTube and go to Joe Chiappi channel or whatever, and we're not there yet. We
Okay,
are.
so let me just show you something here. Okay, so everybody that's watching tonight, pay attention because right now we've got issues with YouTube because of everything that's going on with the coronavirus. They are not at full staff, so notifications for live streams don't seem to be going out like they used to. So here's the thing: I'm going to bring up my YouTube channel. I just want to show you 1 second here. So
Oh, here we are. Is that Joe and Joe show? Mostly quiet weather day.
yeah, that's it. So
That's
here's the thing. So if you go and search on YouTube and you put in my name, Joe Cioffi, okay? All right. Click on this. Click on here where you got my picture. So you go right to my channel page, okay? And the live stream will be there. You see it right here on the
oh,
screen.
I
So
see.
the links they're not showing up on that long page where they give you all the different search results. But if you click um, on my picture and it takes you right to my channel page, then you will see the live, and you see it says live now. So that
Yes.
will at least get around that particular problem temporarily. Also, welcome to those of you who are watching on the meteorologist Joe Cioffi weather app. Since I embedded the live code and we're on, you can watch it live from the weather app. And usually I put it on afterwards, but tonight I did it ahead of time. Also, welcome to anybody that's coming on from Facebook, from Twitter, or from LinkedIn. So I tried to get all the bases covered. It's a very frustrating time right now, for sure. For sure.
You're the king of all media, Joe.
I try. I don't know. It's very, like I said, it's very, very frustrating. Not half as frustrating as it is for snow lovers who are looking at the models last night and today, and they see this blocking pattern that is setting up now for the next 7 to 10 days, and pointing to a weather system for the middle of next week, which would probably wind up being a cold rain if it verifies, particularly if the European verifies. Although the European actually produced some snow on their snow maps today in some areas along the coast, but just kind of rubbing salt into the wound, because you and I both know that unless it's absolutely perfect, it ain't going to happen this at where we are in the calendar.
Correct. Absolutely correct. And today, by the way, in the calendar, opening day of the baseball season. What a gorgeous day it would have been for the Mets playing at Citi Field today. Lots of sunshine, temperatures up to around 60 or low 60s. And what do we have? Bleh.
Oh, Joe. All right, so look,
You know
let's
what
get
they did? Well, it was interesting on SNY, I think, the New York Met channel.
right.
Uh, they actually were playing, I think, Stratomatic, which was a game that I used to play as a kid. We go one team against another team, throwing the dice and cards.
Oh yeah, I remember
And
that.
that's what they were reduced to today, was playing opening day with Stratomatic baseball.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what? It'll all, one day everything will eventually get back to being normalized, and we'll just look back on this as just kind of how we look on those days after Hurricane Sandy, when it was just very surreal, and just trying to time seemed to pass very slowly during that stretch.
Yes.
So, all right, so let's take a look at what's happening tonight across the United States, and actually, this is another night. We've had another day and another night where really it is pretty quiet. There's not really a whole lot going on. Oh, whoops! I punched up the wrong page. Hang on. There we go. Not really a lot going on. There's very little in terms of any kind of warnings other than some wind issues in New Mexico, some red flag issues in southeastern Colorado, minor snow issues in southeastern Wyoming, and in a couple of counties in northern Colorado. Otherwise, quiet in the east, quiet in the west, and we managed to squeeze out a decent day. Although I got to tell you something, Mr. Rao, it's very strange today. I don't know if you got to look. Let me roll this. I want to add a few extra frames to the satellite loop. And it was just kind of weird. Look at those clouds. This was showing up yesterday in the Ohio Valley, and I really didn't pay too much attention to it. But uh, take a look at the beginning of this loop, and there were these clouds that were sitting in Pennsylvania, in eastern Pennsylvania, the eastern half of the state, down into Virginia, North Carolina, this morning and into early afternoon. They finally burned off, but I don't know. Where did they come from? You know, I was thinking that we would probably see some clouds mixing in with the sun today at some point, but that didn't happen. High clouds are coming in now. But these clouds that were out to the west, I don't know if that was a low cloud deck, or it doesn't look like it was a low cloud deck. So I don't know what that was. It's very
I don't
weird.
know. Maybe convergence or maybe differential advection. Maybe the winds were going one way up top and another way at the bottom.
Could be. I
Oh,
mean, the clouds weren't even moving very much. It almost looked like snow cover, which we know that wasn't the case.
right.
And I was looking at the temperatures around 11 o'clock this morning when I did my weather in 5. We were ready. Just about everybody was in the 50s, but you had this large area in the eastern half of Pennsylvania where it was overcast, so temperatures there were about 10 degrees lower. But finally, everybody seemed to get into at least some sun. And you see the storm system that developed off the coast yesterday is now swirling away off of southeastern New England. And now we've got this next disturbance that is moving right along along the Great Lakes, and you've got this subtropical feed that's coming now out of the Pacific across Baja California and into the southern plains. So this is going to start to set up our situation here for the weekend.
And the weekend right now, looking like if you're going to do anything out of doors, probably you should do it on Saturday because on Sunday it looks like it's going to be rather damp and rather showery, especially in the early part of the day. It looks like.
Yeah, radar at the moment. We'll bring that up. I got the shot here from earlier, so I'm just going to update it. There's some precip that's moving across southern Michigan and into Ohio, down into parts of southern West Virginia. It's a little bit on the blotchy side. It's moving east southeast. So I think this area, Joe, gets in here probably after midnight. And if we play our cards right, most of it should be done by daybreak tomorrow or shortly after daybreak, and then we might spend the rest of the day tomorrow just kind of, I don't know.
Trying to break out into the sunshine, just like
Yeah,
if you remember last Friday, we had clouds and we had fog. I had 500-foot visibility and low cloud cover in 51 at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday of last week. And 3 hours later, I had bright sunshine and a temperature 21 degrees higher. So that's not going to happen this time around, but it looks like the same kind of trend where we start off kind of gloomy on Friday morning and then work our way into a more sunnier disposition during the afternoon.
we uh, need to. Oh, I lost my train of thought there for a second. What was I going to say? Oh, I was going to say a day like today, in the pattern we're going in, it's a wise. Um, it was wise. Um, to take advantage of the sunshine because we're going to be in a situation here where every 24 to 36 hours we're going to have something coming through. The dry weather, when it's here, especially since we all seem to be cooped up in our homes in general and can't do very much. So when the weather is nice, do take advantage. And by the way, we still have the other spot where there's some activity because of some energy out in the southwest. So you've got some precip and rain showers scattered around in California, and also down into parts of New Mexico and Arizona, and a little bit of activity up in the Pacific Northwest, and also a little streak of precip here running across the northern half of South Dakota. But otherwise, in terms of having a major storm running around, that we don't have. So it is pretty quiet from that respect.
Yes, and and it was lovely. A friend of mine, Joe, told me, and he lives up in Stormville, New York. That's in Dutchess County. He said he just got out the chair and laid out in the sun this afternoon, and he said it was very strange. He said normally he sees the skies crisscrossed with contrails. Normally he would see aircraft flying along from nearby Stewart Air Force Base or Stewart Airport, very quiet, not much on the nearby roadways. He said he could almost hear the trucks rolling along on the Taconic and Route 9, even though they were many miles away. It really, this situation that we're in right now, with everybody staying indoors for the most part, or just not going anywhere, and the lack of any airline flights, that combined with the sunshine made this for, he said, was one of the most delightful days he could remember in about 40 years.
You know what? I have to tell you, I walked today. I did just under 8 miles, and I've been walking every day when I get the chance. And I walk along a main road here on on today's path. I walked along a main road that's usually fairly busy. It was even less quiet. It was even more quiet than it is on a Sunday.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, it is very nice. I know this may sound a little counterintuitive, but listen to the quiet, okay? Really, listen to it, because you hear things now that you might not normally hear because of the usual noise that's around, birds and rustling and all sorts of day-to-day activity out in nature. So really, it's kind of there are pluses if you look for them. And then I went up to Cedar Beach for a short time. Uh, uh, there were very few people there, and I mean, I just kind of drove in and just hung around for a couple of minutes, just to get a little bit of Long Island Sound air, and it's nice when you know when there are no crowds. I guess we should be thankful for the fact that this is not happening in the summertime, in the middle of a heat wave,
Right.
because then it would be like really, problematic. You'd be wanting to go to the beach or go in a pool or something, and that's not happening. And hopefully, this will all be done with by the time we get there. Let's take a look at what SPC is doing, and I'm just going to go over to. There's not much going on today. For tomorrow, we have an area of marginal risk cutting east-west from Kansas to Ohio with a small of along the Missouri-Kansas border. And then on Saturday, which is day 3, it looks like this will be a bit more of an active day where we've got slight risk in the Ohio Valley to the lower Great Lakes, and then going into on the edge here of general thunderstorm activity. But that is all going to hinge on this warm front that's going to be coming up.
Right. Right. And I'm just, well, as you're talking, Joe, I'm looking back here on some weather records, and it seems that 6 years ago today, there was an absolutely tremendous storm, coastal storm, and apparently we missed out on on one of the most intense coastal storms in like decades. We were exposed to just a few snowflakes and gusty winds, and this is again 6 years ago, 35 to 50 miles an hour. It was a whole different story on Cape Cod and the adjacent islands of Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard. Just to give you an example um, of the severity of the conditions out there, they had on Nantucket 9.5 inches of snow, accompanied by wind gusts to 83 miles per hour.
I'm sorry, this was 6 years ago today?
Yes, March 26, 19. Well, today is the 25th.
Okay,
Is it
so
the 26th? Yeah, no, it's the 26th today.
2015 or 2014?
2014.
All right, hang on. I'm going to bring the surface map up. March 25th.
Or 26, 19. Well, 25th, 26, 2014.
All right, I can tell you, I'm looking at boy. This was March 25th at 12Z, where temperatures were in the teens and 20s, just about everywhere.
Uh huh.
So let's run through this. Let's see what transpired, because we've got low pressure in the Great Lakes. There's a low in western North Carolina, And we've got a high sitting east of Cape Cod, and there's a low, well off the southeast coast, at least at 12Z on Tuesday, March 25th. So I will go to the next map and the next. So that low that was well off the South Carolina coast moves northeast. It's a 97 low, deepens to a 92. Yeah, I could see what, at least judging from this surface map, Joe. Um, at 3Z, there's a 990 low at about 35 and 65. I'm sorry, 35 and 70. So we were kind of on the edge, and it was certainly cold enough because temperatures were in the 20s and low 30s at that time. So this would be at 11 o'clock at night. And at 6Z, it deepens to an 84. 9Z, it's a 971 low at about 38, 37 and a half or so, and about 60, 68 and a half, 69.
Right, outside the benchmark.
Right, and then you got a 968 low, less than a 64 low, at about 40 and 65. So we were blowing away on that Wednesday morning. Temperatures in the 20s, dew points in the teens, and 20 to 25 sustained along the coast. And let me punch it. And it just, at 15Z, it's a 960. Yeah, the Cape is getting clobbered with this.
Yeah.
So, we were getting one of those March wind type of days, and that was that. Yeah, we missed out on a big storm.
Well, we can dream again, can't we?
we
Maybe next week?
Well, let's take a look. First of all, issue number one. So I just want to bring up the upper air here. I'm going to use the NAM upper air, and we've got, there are changes going on here, and there is a bit of a ridge that builds here in the east for Friday into Saturday, because you've got all your energy is back out in the west. We're all pretty familiar with the fact that you've got this deep trough sitting in the western part of the United States. Uh, and here's our upper low and shortwave in Minnesota that is heading to the northeast. So that's going to be the driver with regards to the surface low. And of course, eventually that trough just kind of swings on through, so that by the time we get to Monday, we've got a trough. The shortwave trough is moving into the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states, and we got more energy that is coming out into the west. Now, next week, I'm going to go to the GFS. Actually, no, I'm going to go to the European. There hasn't been much happening, so let's look at the model that's the most dynamic, so we can have a little fun. So let me bring up the European 500 here and show you everybody what's going on. So finally, after seeing nothing like this through the whole winter, and of course, we had that stretch back not too many weeks ago with those record westerly winds across the Atlantic, as you remember, a super positive North Atlantic oscillation. So, well, of course, now here we are on Monday, March 30th, and I'm looking at, a cutoff high just to the south of Iceland that's building northward. And you can take a look at the overall flow pattern, folks. You can see where the jet stream is displaced now further south than normal. You've got a lot of short waves running around. There's also another big upper high over northwest Alaska. So, you're starting to get this where the Arctic, the polar vortex beginning to break down. The Arctic oscillation is probably going negative. All the kinds of things that snow lovers would want to see um, in January and February and didn't get. And of course, you go into Tuesday and Wednesday. I mean, this is really a fairly. This right now, if we were sitting even at the very beginning of this month, snow lovers would be foaming at the mouth here. You have a really blocky setup here that develops this coming week. Upper high that starts to build, that eye that was south of Iceland builds westward toward Labrador. The Alaskan high is building eastward at the same time. So all the ingredients are here. The problem is that you're dealing with at best, there's probably going to be some colder air that's up in Canada, but it's not really of the Arctic variety. So I don't know how cold it's going to be able to get. The European hints at some slightly colder air trying to bleed down, but I don't know that it's going to be enough.
But you said that on the European that they actually had some numbers for snow with this system next week.
Yes, I'll show you in a moment here. Let me just. I'm going to take the surface map of the European.
I find that very interesting because the thickness value, and of course, when you want to see snow, you want a thickness of 540 or less. And on the map that I'm looking at for the European, that 540 line is way north of our tri-state area, as the storm system from the south, the one that is suppressed by the GFS, as that storm from the south on the European comes into our area, the 540 is to the north. So if they're generating any kind of snow, it must be due to some cold air, a shallow layer of cold air, maybe down near the last couple of thousand feet of
Right, and you also have the upper low that's going to be moving overhead. That gives you a little bit of dynamic cooling.
intensity. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we get to that, for Saturday, Saturday we've got this warm front that's setting up, and the European seems to be a little bit slower. It's holding us Saturday morning. There's a 1023 high in southern Vermont. So there's a little bit, the NAM actually showed a little bit of blue in the Hudson Valley Saturday morning on the leading edge of precip. But I'm looking at the European for Sunday morning, Joe. The warm front is not by. The low is in northern Wisconsin, okay, a 988 low. And you've got the cold front with that's trailing, that swings around down through Ohio and down the Appalachians. But the way the isobars are drawn, the warm front is actually pinched off over Maryland and Delaware, and the isobar is actually east southeast, or over us. So that would still mean an east wind here Sunday morning. You wonder whether that front's ever going to get through if that's the
Right.
case.
Well, I've seen temperatures for Sunday um, projected to be, well up in the 50s or even near 60. And as going along what you just said, if that warm front doesn't get through, and if we stay cloudy through much of the day, and the winds come in from an easterly direction, we ain't getting to 60 degrees. We ain't getting to the mid 50s. We may have a tough time cracking 50 on Sunday.
Yeah, even on Monday, that primary low weakens as it goes into into Canada. There's a low southeast of Cape Cod. So I mean, it really to me implies that there's going to be some kind of low that maybe a little wave that develops on the warm front and keeps us pinched, keeps us pinched off to a certain extent, and then it just eventually it just improves because everything moves along the northeast. Now on Tuesday, you've got a low in western Tennessee, high pressure, weak high pressure across upstate New York. And then by Wednesday, you have a primary in West Virginia that's dying out at a 991 low that is off the southern tip of the Delmarva Peninsula. High pressure is kind of weak high pressure over the top, eastern Canada going back westward toward the lakes, and then it all resolves itself with a 984 low well southeast of Cape Cod. The snow map on Pivotal Weather actually produced some snow, according to a couple of inches back to central New Jersey and northeastern Pennsylvania into the Catskills. It's a little weird because it's got, it just has not very much Dutchess County northward, and then for southeastern New England, over Rhode Island, eastern Connecticut, southeastern Mass, it's got 6 inches, and it's got an inch or two over Long Island. You know what? We've been again. This is courtesy of Pivotal Weather. I just want to make sure you guys can see the Pivotal Weather logo. We thank them very much for being able to put the map up. But we've been down this road with the European before, and we know what's happened. You do have this blocky scenario setting up, so it does have a little bit of my attention, but you're going to have to show me a whole lot more before I get I get too emotionally wrapped up in this. And the other thing is, if you look at the GFS, now this could be typical GFS, where it kind of does the same thing with respect to the surface. So first off, just to back up, The GFS does bring the warm front through. Uh, but even the GFS is trying to show that it might get hung up near New York City on Sunday. Definitely get some rain on Saturday. So Saturday is just going to be another, an evolving gloom and doom day, and then we'll get this front on Sunday. Monday we'll see some improvement, and into Tuesday. So there's that little dry period you take advantage of. And the GFS has got 1,004 low in Western Tennessee that it just basically slides straight to the east. It never really lifts it up northward like the European does.
Right.
So that could be the usual. How the GFS used to love to suppress things, and that's what it does. It just basically suppresses everything. There's another shortwave coming down behind it, but we'll leave this to tomorrow and the weekend to figure out whether there's any sense of reality to this.
And
Because
Chuck Cardillo on the chat board says, "Here we go again with the models. They're doing an April Fool's joke on us." That is true because when next week is indeed the 1st of April. April
right,
Fool's.
that's Wednesday, right? Yeah, Wednesday's April 1st.
Is it Wednesday or Tuesday?
No, Tuesday's the 31st. Wednesday's April 1st. So this will be Wednesday.
The
Let,
other thing about this show, I don't even know anymore. We all look forward to, let's say, the weekend, and oh, here's Friday, but now with the state of the world the way it is, it's like one day after another day is the same. It doesn't
every,
matter
every,
whether it's a
every
Monday or Wednesday or Saturday or Sunday.
every day is a Sunday.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. And going forward, by the way, the pattern still stays somewhat blocky, uh, pretty much right through the period. So this is going into a typical spring. Look how blocky it is. But this is sick. This is really sick. I'm looking at this, Joe. You go look at the 18Z GFS and even the 12Z to a certain extent.
Right.
As we go through next week and beyond, it couldn't be more blocky. You've got
Right.
it's horrible. You have a 50-50 low. You've got
Uh,
the jet stream suppressed all the way down to like Cuba, for God's sake.
I, you know, I was
It's
saying from
disgusting.
I was saying from the end of February through March, I said, you watch. As soon as we get into like late March or early April, here come the block, and here it comes.
I'm gonna just take a look. They didn't have new teleconnections yesterday. I'm gonna see if they have. Yeah, they haven't updated. They haven't updated the teleconnections since 2 days ago. But at that time, the teleconnections were signaling that the North Atlantic Oscillation was going to go strongly negative right around the April 1st. And the EPO is going neutral-ish around April 1st, and the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, is rising rapidly from its off-the-wall readings that we have right now. Again, this is from 2 days ago. So, but I'm sure if we could calculate the teleconnections by hand, which I am not going to do, we would come up with a rather bullish-looking set of numbers that are going to be completely useless to all of us. So I'm going to let me bring you back up full screen, and there you are. So without much in the way of current weather going on, there really, we're at 7:30, so we're halfway through. I'm calling it disgusting, Reaver, only because of the fact that it's April. And as a few of the snow lovers have mentioned, this should have been happening in February. It should have been happening in January. We had it at the very end of November, beginning of December. But through the whole winter, we had nothing that looked anything like this.
Right.
It's just so hard, it's a testament to the type of pattern that we've had, and it's insult to injury. That's why I'm saying it's disgusting. Because now, if you're going to have it at this time of year, although I will say this, and you might disagree with me, but given everything that's going on, I really kind of wish it would snow,
Oh
because
yeah.
it would just be, it would be a nice distraction for us to talk about something that would look pretty outside, if it would cooperate and snow at night at least. Yeah, it'd be nice if it happened just to distract all of us and and it would give us something to talk about.
Quite frankly, I think even if we had snow of a certain intensity, I think it only place it would accumulate would be on colder surfaces like decks and grass and tops of cars or whatever. But most paved surfaces would probably. Although I shouldn't even say that because on Monday I had for about an hour intense enough snow to actually cover my driveway, my blacktop driveway. So I guess it's still possible, but yeah, it would be nice if we had something interesting around the middle of next week to take everybody's minds off what's been going on. Hey, all of a sudden move weather back up to the top of the show. We'll see.
Yeah. So talk about talk. Let's give a plug to your book.
Oh, my, the snow, it's behind me. Yeah, if you're interested, any of you are interested, it's on Joe Rao Weather, my YouTube channel. We posted earlier today, the video that I did. I don't know if you want to call it a webinar for kids. It's just simply me reading the book about snow, the science of snow, how it happens to form, and all different aspects of it. And it's there. And if you're interested, or maybe you have a young person who wants to watch it with you, it's up there. And it's gotten some nice reviews. People have looked at it and said, "Boy, it's really nice the way." And I have to give credit to two people: my wife, who pushed me into doing it, and my daughter, who did all of the technical stuff. There's a beautiful the video starts off with a snowy scene and indicates the title of the book and who wrote it and who's reading it. And we actually, Joe, on Monday, we did 5 different takes. I say we, my wife and I, we went to all different parts of our property to try to get a view of me talking about the book while it was snowing on Monday
Right.
morning. And a couple of times it wasn't snowing at all. All there was a little bit of snow on the bushes or whatever. But at one point, I'm looking out the window, and all of a sudden it was coming down real hard. And I said, "Quick, let's go, let's do it." And I went out on my deck, and here's the snow coming down. It turned out to be a nice program. It's interesting to put together. And if anybody's interested, again, it's at Joe Rao Weather on YouTube, my YouTube channel. And if you watch it, and if you have not done already, please subscribe. We're trying to get to that magic number of 1,000, and we're just a few shy of 700 now.
Joe Rao Weather. Listen, the first major storm that if we ever get one again, and we will, you'll make up that number. You'll get to that number in a hurry.
Or maybe next.
Um, yeah. Let me just also point out for those of you who are on the chat board and you haven't done it yet, there's let's call it the after party. So there's the offline chat that continues on Discord, and I put the link up there. It's free. And that chat goes on all day long. So there's other weather stuff that folks are putting on there. I've been putting on some stuff from time to time. I join in the chat when I can. Otherwise, I wind up being glued to the computer all day long, which I really don't want to do. But it'll come in useful certainly when there's storms. So feel free to join there. Reaver 501 says, now I know it's a typo, but I have to point this out. So he says, in 1098, didn't the North Shore of Long Island get a wet snow? I know you mean 1998. But, I don't think we have records that go back to William the Conqueror, but you never know. I seem to recall something that happened in 1998 in April. I'd have to go back and double check. My memory is very thin these days.
That was the El Nino year. That was the year of the extreme El Nino, 97, 98.
And usually when, in those kind of years, those are the kind of years where you wind up getting snowfalls that are kind of outside the winter month, outside the box, outside the winter months, like 11 October of 11, for example. And this might be another example if I go back and look at it. But yeah, those kind of winters, those strong El Ninos, those strong La Nina years, you wind up seeing snowfalls occurring outside the box. And when you think about it, Joe, with the way the polar vortex got wrapped up the way it did, it almost resembled what happens in an El Nino or La Nina year during this winter. So I guess it's not a shock that we're seeing. If we wind up seeing something next week on Wednesday with this low going by to our south, wouldn't be a huge surprise.
Right. I think the more I think about it, Joe, the more I think we now need a snowstorm to take our minds off of everything else that's been going on. I mean, and some people might say there's, oh no, a snowstorm on top of everything else. But I honestly think that it would be a refreshing change of pace. So bring it on. Let's have a
It's not like you have to drive in it. I mean, it's not like anybody has to go to work. Everything is shut down.
right.
I should say, by the way, a third person that I know and someone that I worked with back when I was at WNBC, I found out today was and younger than us too, was in the hospital with the coronavirus and was very serious and got very seriously ill, had breathing problems, but he's recovered and he still hasn't even gotten his test results back, but
Yeah.
he's displayed all the symptoms and he's going to be released today. So just very thankful. So I'm up to 3 people that I know, that had this. Uh, so this is serious stuff here, and especially since young people are, there seems to be young people here that are getting this. So let's do some Briller Jeopardy. Mr. Briller is back on the board tonight. So, how many 6-inch snowstorms have occurred in April in New York City?
How many 6-inch snowstorms? Well, I know
Yes,
it's one in '82. There was another one, I think, in 1915. So that's the two. 6 inches. I'll say four,
six,
six.
six
Okay.
and six.
Okay. So yeah, it's so it shows you that it's still possible. Um, and by the way, speaking of Scott and also Jalon Perry kicking in on the super chats tonight.
Uh, yes. I'm sorry. I'm just going through, just seeing if there were any other questions on the board here.
Jalon
Uh,
says, who knows what of all of April can bring us? It almost sounds like the shadow. Who knows what April lurks in
in
the
the hearts of
shadow?
men.
The shadow. No.
Yeah. Behave now. Let me just see if I've got any other questions on my other source page here. Oh boy. So let's see. Hang on. Uh, mhm. Okay, no, I guess that was the only one, Scott. If I missed any other ones, just send it to me and we'll do it tomorrow. I'm trying to think if there's anything else of consequence that happened today that I should share with our studio audience. And no, it was a pretty straightforward day. I went for my walk, and that was that. And thank you, Scott, for hitting Super Chat. And also thank you, Javon Perry, for hitting Super Chat. Thank you very much to both of you. Let's see. I'm just running through the chat board. Steve Lapointe's putting up the case count with the coronavirus there on the chat tonight. The chat board is actually, there's lots of useful information that gets discussed among everybody. So if you are new to the channel and you're not watching, all you need is your Gmail account. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Joe Cioffi. And then after that, after you're done here, you go to Joe Rao's YouTube channel, Joe Rao Weather, and subscribe to that. And use your Gmail account, and then you can participate in the chat when Joe does his short fuse updates and when we do our live streams here, which we do almost every day because we
You know, I
usually take
almost
Saturday off.
I haven't done a short fused video update either on Facebook or on YouTube in a couple of weeks now, just simply because there hasn't been much to talk about. But maybe, just maybe, if things start getting interesting for the middle of next week, I might start doing that for, my goodness, it's Friday tomorrow already.
Yes.
You
Oh,
know what?
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's tomorrow also, Joe. I mentioned this to you off air.
Tomorrow is National Joe Day.
National Joe Day on March 27th encourages everyone to enjoy a cup of Joe with your friends named Joe. Joe, Joey, Joseph, and Josephine. And while you're at it, don't forget Joette, Jody, Johanna, Jody, or any other variant of the name Joe.
Joanne.
Joanne, yes.
Okay.
Or Does Billy Joe, Bobby Joe, and Billy Joe?
Betty Joe, yeah, Billy Joe, Bobby Joe, and Betty Joe. Okay, so the Scott, I saw the question, but I didn't see the answer. So the other question was, how many days since 1869? I guess in the month of April. How many days in the month of April since 1869 has New York City received 1 inch of rain?
1 inch of rain?
Yeah,
Isn't that more common than snow? Snow? Uh, that's like your question yesterday. What was it about? How many
right.
times we've had significant snow?
How many times does the record snowfall for each individual date surpass the 4.8 inches we had? And
Uh,
that answer was 103.
103.
Okay, but this was so. How many times since 1869 have we seen 1 inch rainfall events during the month of April?
I would. That I mean, like, oh, is that okay? I was just saying to myself, but that 30 days in April, I could just say 30, but that's for the over the 150-year times.
Right. So, if there was one year, there might have been one day in the month that had an inch of rain. Maybe on another year, there was 2 days, et cetera, et cetera.
You
So,
know,
cumulatively,
April is a very stormy month. In fact, I think there was once, I think David Ludlum, the famous weather historian, said that based upon a study that he looked at, it was the stormiest month of the year, not February or January or any of the wintry months, April. I, so let's see, for 1 inch of rain, it's not a 150-year period or whatever like that. I'm going to say like 120 times.
okay, now, Scott, is this the answer here? Um, because I see you put up a number 525 times.
525.
Now, I don't. Is that the right answer? Because I don't have it. Everybody's putting up guesses. Oh, now Scott put up. It is 579 times.
So over
Price
the
is Right rules, by the way. For those of you that were guessing, it's
wait a minute.
always Price is Right rules. Oh, and by the way, um, uh, it has been pointed out that you are wearing your Ricky Ricardo smoking jacket top, the velour sweater that you have on.
Oh, really?
Yes,
I didn't take note of that.
Mrs. Rayo did.
Oh,
She is pointing it out.
What
okay.
is that about the velour?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
his Ricky Ricardo smoking sweater.
he loves velour. Over all the years, he loves. Johnny
Joe.
Quest wants to know about the comet.
Oh,
Oh,
Renata, get closer to your husband.
Oh,
I know it's social distancing and all the rest of it, but you've been trapped in the same house. And there you go. So I took myself off the screen.
before
Okay,
before
hold on. Since you're doing that, we need to do it. We need to do a collective. Isn't he dreamy? Okay, so go ahead. Johnny Quest had a
Scott
question.
Scott, wait a minute. Scott Briller was what was it again? The number with the rainstorms was 500 and something.
579. I think he said it was 579.
So
579.
so basically, what we're talking about is 150 years of records. There are 30 days in April, so that makes out 4,500 possibilities, and so there are approximately 500 of those. So uh, I'm figuring it out here. I got my little pocket calculator, and so that means that approximately like 0.11 of or 11% of all of the possibilities had rain over 1 inch in all of the April days going all the way back to 1869.
Oh, and Chuck Cardillo pointed out that what we saw on the satellite now makes sense. Thank you, Chuck. Was Deep Valley fog.
Okay,
That's got to be it because yesterday was all around in the Ohio Valley, and the day before was more toward the Great Lakes, but it really
and it was
stands out greatly on the satellite the last couple of days, and this morning it sure did. I just was kind of curious as to what it was because it doesn't fog usually shows up, the low gray, the low clouds, the gray
right,
cloud. This was like bright white stuff. It looked, like snow cover.
right.
Um,
It dissipated in the same manner as when you were in grammar school and you had the job of washing the blackboard and you wanted to get it done real fast. You blew on it
yes.
and it went slowly but surely it kind of shriveled up. The question about the comet, There is a comet out there. It is named Atlas, believe it or not. It's an acronym actually for a robotic camera in Hawaii that searches constantly for possible asteroids that may make a hazardous close approach to the Earth. And occasionally it runs across comets. This comet was discovered at the end of December. The comet was very, very dim, very faint. Astronomers didn't think much of it, but over the last couple of months, it has brightened rapidly, much more rapidly than any comet would normally as it approaches the sun. And that has, on the internet now, given rise to speculation that the thing is going to become spectacularly bright, brilliant, in fact, by the time it gets close to the sun in May. But I hate to tell all of you this, those of you astronomy buffs, but in the last week or two, the comet seems to have hit a wall, like the proverbial marathon at the 20-mile mark. And so all of that vibrant and robust brightening has suddenly slowed. And it may very well be that that slowness in brightening now suggests that the comet won't end up being much just look at after all. But we'll continue to watch it. And if it does look like anything significant or spectacular, you mark my words, you'll hear it from this mouth here on the Joe and Joe Show in the coming days and weeks ahead.
Some of the folks on the chat board want Renata to read from the Snow Book.
They want Renata to read from the
Snow Book.
Oh, well, Renata's gone now.
Oh, she's gone.
Where is
Why,
she?
why should I read from the Snow
I
Book?
don't know. They were asking you to read from the Snow Book.
Oh, you mean they didn't like Joe's presentation on YouTube?
No, they didn't say that. They just simply said that they would like Renata to read from the Snow Book.
No.
But maybe we'll have to do that on another slow night.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? She'll read live here on Joe and Joe out of the Snow Book, and I'll immediately get the 300 or so subscribers that I'm so yearning to get.
That's the world we live in.
Yes, indeed.
So, what was for dinner tonight?
Oh, we had shrimp.
Shrimp.
Oh,
and,
nice.
Hawaiian shrimp, Hawaiian rice with some pineapple in it too, and asparagus.
Oh, very good.
Right.
I kept it simple. I made a big salad, and I made chicken leg quarters in the oven. I baked them. I took all the skin off, and I baked them at 400 degrees with some garlic, paprika, some kosher salt, and just a little bit of olive oil. Nice and light.
Because of all the walking that you did today, you'll be hungry by 9.
No, you know what's sad? I've walked 20. I probably the last 3 days, and I've been walking a lot the last several weeks. I've gained 5 pounds.
No.
It's not fair. There is no God. There just isn't. Reaver wants to know if you own a refractor or reflector telescope.
I own actually I own both.
Oh,
I have a 3.1-inch refracting telescope. It's a wide field telescope. I have a 10.1-inch Dobsonian reflecting telescope. And a few years ago, actually more than a few years ago, about 10 years ago, my mom and sister combined forces. And on a Christmas day, I think in 2010, they bought me the binoculars of my dream.
No, I thought I did.
Was it you
got
guys?
Yeah, I got it.
I thought it was my sister.
No, I got it.
Oh.
I think I'm almost positive
All
I
right.
got it.
Okay. 25 by
anyway,
25 by 100 binoculars, which are so big and so heavy. In fact, what you see behind me, this mount that you see behind me is supposed to, and it has counterweights, 5 and 10 pound counterweights. That's how heavy these damn things are. And so that's the drawback of these binoculars, is that I also have another tripod to hold these things. Just recently, we bought a year ago. We bought a tripod for these binoculars, but they're so damn heavy, Joe. They're not the kind of binoculars you take to the ballpark.
Or spy on your neighbors with, which is what I do. Just like on the Lucy episode when the neighbors were moving in.
Right, or Mrs. Kravitz.
Or Mrs. Kravitz, yes.
Did Kravitz ever use binoculars on any?
Oh, well, yeah, of course she did.
Oh, of course. All right.
Christinapedia heard what you had, wants a recipe.
For what?
For what you guys had tonight.
The shrimp?
The shrimp with the Hawaiian rice, et cetera, et cetera.
By the way, you remember that beautiful for St. Patrick's Day, We made soda bread. She made soda bread.
Yes.
We didn't quite finish it, so the last little bit of soda bread went to the birds tonight.
Oh, okay. Christina Petey puts a line, "Woman's work." Let me tell you, I cook. Hey, Reaver. Reaver says, must be nice to find a woman who knows how to cook. You know what? You can cook yourself too. I cook I cook almost every night. Cooking for me is so wonderfully relaxing. I don't know how you feel about it, Renata, but for me, cooking, it's like when I'm doing.
Sure.
No,
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 but I do like it. I do
yeah,
like
but
it.
I
And
mean, usually when you're cooking, whatever's going on, especially now that your kid, when the kids are grown and gone, but when you're cooking, all I'm only focused on the food. I think the house could fall apart around me, and if I'm looking for where my spices are, that's all I'm thinking about. So I find it to be very relaxing.
Okay.
That's just me. Oh, Christina
water.
Petey.
That's it.
Christina Petey says Christina Petey says Glenn D. Fayani, Faini, is a photographer and takes awesome astronomy photos. Check him out on Facebook. And apparently he used to have a website, Glenn with two N's, Faini. So for those of you who are interested, do a Google search and take a look, and take a look at the man's photography work.
That's good. It's good if you have a nice dark sky, and it's amazing the cameras that they have today, even the digital cameras. I remember Joe as a young boy trying to take pictures of the moon with my grandfather's.
Brownie.
It was like a bellows camera.
Oh, okay. I was going to say the Brownie. Remember the Brownie cameras from
Oh, the
Kodak?
box cameras.
Yeah.
It took 620 film. I mean, you remember like you used to get like 120 film in the uh, Instamatic cameras or something like that. This was a big thing, and I'm trying to take pictures with this thing. And meanwhile, my daughter, she's like, "Oh, you want a picture of the moon, Dad?" She holds up her phone, click, or puts it up to the telescope, click.
Came out beautiful too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I think about all the time, again as a kid, trying to desperately like take a picture of the stupid moon, and then waiting a week for it to come back from the drugstore, and you just click. Yeah.
All right, let's call it a night. We're coming up on 8 o'clock. So we'll see you tomorrow night, I guess. Good night, Renata.
Good night.
Well, there she goes.
She was running. So we'll see you tomorrow. Everybody have a great night. Please stay safe. Okay. Um, Reaver says he's divorced. Everything his ex made was leathery.
Take a Joe out to
We
lunch.
could we could go on with that conversation.
No.
We could take it to another level, but we're not going to do it. We're a family show. Okay, so tomorrow is National Joe Day, so we will see you tomorrow at 7 o'clock Eastern time, and of course, don't forget our Sunday morning Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is on Sunday morning at 11 o'clock Eastern time. But I will remind everybody tomorrow. So use the Discord link to I'll put it up one more time so you can continue with the chat as after the live stream ends. And I also, by the way, with no notifications going out from YouTube, I'm also, Patreon members always get notified about the live stream. But I'm also putting the links up on Discord, so this way you know that the live stream is coming. All right. So everybody, good night. Have a great evening. Stay safe. Social distancing, and we'll see you tomorrow.